Okay, it's recording now. Yep, we're good to go.
We're good to go? Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Angela Japa, and I will be talking to you today about communicating digitally and making sure it's inclusive and accessible, utilizing email and utilizing social media. So, a couple of things we're going to be going over today is we're going to be kind of defining, going over the definition of accessibility in the digital space, going over social media, specifically focusing on Instagram and step-by-step instructions on what you can do to make your posts more engaging for your audiences. Then we're going to be going over Gmail, how you could also write emails using Google Docs. And at the end, we're going to look at some resources. So starting with what digital accessibility is, I will not go too much into depth here. Main focus here is, again, hands-on approach and tools you can use to make your things more accessible. But digital accessibility really is the core component of our digital campus, making sure that whatever we are designing, all of our materials, all of our experiences and environments that our students are using or accessing are designed so that people can understand them, interact with them regardless of their ability status or technology that they're using. So what does this mean in social media? It's really ensuring that it can be used with people who also have disabilities, right? Visual, whether they're visual, hearing, motor, or cognitive disabilities. So often barriers that we see often in social media are images without alternative text, without descriptions, videos without captions. This is a big one, right? We see a lot of low contrast text being used on social media and overuse of emojis or text in images. So first thing we're going to talk about is the first thing you could do to make your social media more accessible really is adding captions to all your videos. Today, at least with all of the software editing tools, it's a very easy thing to add, and Instagram itself has a built-in feature that allows you to add closed captions. So you should also, if you are adding these captions, make sure that the captions are accurate. Once you add them, once the AI automatically transcribes your words, just read through them, make sure that it's catching whatever you're trying to say. What I like to say is I personally have an accent, so oftentimes the 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 computer understands wrongly what I'm trying to say. So I always make sure to reread through my captions, make sure they're accurate. Adding this in Instagram would be if you're opening up and editing your video. If you look at the bottom of the editing tools, I think it's a fifth or sixth tool, you can find the CC icon, which stands for closed captions. Clicking on that automatically generates your captions on your video. So you don't need to sit and write out a script. It can automatically be done, and it takes no more than a minute and a half. Next thing we're going to be talking about is adding alternative text for images. Alternative text is there to describe what is going in the image to the screen reader for the person using the screen reader who is not able to see the photo. Instagram thankfully has this feature. So a good practice would be to add this alternative text to every single photo that gets posted on our social media. Another thing to avoid would be using text-only images. I think this is a huge practice seen at our university and generally all of them. A lot of departments, when they have events, they make a poster and they post it on Instagram. Even if the poster is made accessibly and passes all the tests in Adobe Acrobat, there is no way for it to be presented on social media in accessible way because Instagram itself does not have the tools to be able to read the content of your posts to somebody using, let's say, a screen reader. So an example of this would be if we decided to add alternative text on Instagram and you were adding, let's say, photos from an event. Let's say we have an alumni event and we're adding photos. If you were to scroll in the editing option at the bottom, there's an option called more options. If you were to click on that, you're going to scroll down to the bottom of your screen again, and there's an option to say write alternative text. And what alt text does, it describes, again, the photos to the people with visual impairments. This text is not supposed to be an essay. It's not supposed to be paragraphs. You're quickly, in one sentence or two sentences, supposed to describe as short as possible what is present in the photo. And convey the meaning of that photo. An example that I have right here is, you can't actually properly see it because the screen is very small when the screenshot was taken, but it's a photo of our cupola, the Sheldon cupola, the tower. So an example of alt text we could use to describe this is, a green clock tower cupola stands in front of the modern buildings and trees with a lake in the background. Overlaid text reads, the summer I turned pretty. This was a couple of months ago, we did a trend. So this was just used as an example for this. So this is how you can specifically add alt text to your Instagram captions. I'm also a fast talker. I'm trying to squeeze in a lot of information right now into this presentation, and also leave time for you guys to ask any questions in the end. So if you need me to backtrack or slow down, feel free to let me know. And also, again, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Looking at the next example is adding a lot of text to your posts. And I'm calling myself out for this, right? This was something that we posted over the summer. Our workaround for this has been making sure that majority of the content and everything that we want our audiences to know is still included in the captions of the post, so that somebody using a screen reader can still utilize it. But we still overused the text, graphics and text in our post. So this is something to be avoided on social media. There is no reason why we couldn't just post a photo that says residence hall waitlist and then exclude the rest of the graphics and everything that we need our students to know, include in the captions that you can see on the third photo down here, as the screen reader can actually access this information. Talking about graphics, it's very important to use the colors carefully. The colors are supposed to be used to enhance understanding, and they should not be the sole way information is communicated. We'll see these examples in emails as well, but let's say email, right? Let's say we are trying to communicate important information to our students, and we're sending out a schedule, and we send out 5 different dates, and we want to say that 2 of the dates are really important. Saying that those dates are the important dates are highlighted in red, to somebody who is using a screen reader or has a visual impairment, they do not understand which dates we're talking about, right? So there's different ways to highlight the important information. So another thing to watch out for the color contrast, for the colors, it's making sure that we are checking our color contrast. And an example of this is the text you're seeing on the bottom. This is not an accessible text unless it is big or bold. Simple, very simple way you can do this in your everyday life, and you'll have to just let me know if you're able to see me Googling. Do you see my Google? Yes, great. The easiest way to do this is just type in color contrast checker, and usually you can go for any of these websites. I like to use the WebAIM because I was taught to use this one. Here, you would be pasting in the background and the foreground color of your text. So in the example that we had here, I would be pasting the hex code for this background color, which is our Oswego green color. And I would be checking to make sure that the color white is passing the contrast checker. So let's look at the Oswego, actually SUNY, Oswego green. I know how to spell usually green, hex code. We can utilize this hex code, paste it into our background color, and we are saying that our color of the text is white. And here I can see that my text passes all of these requirements. If I were to have a lighter background, right, you could automatically steer as things start to fail and they're no longer passing this accessibility test. So this is important whether you're making posters, whether you're utilizing different colors in your email, which are not, I'm not suggesting you do that, but just saying, or if you are posting things on your social media, this is something to watch out for whenever you're creating content like this. I am going to be going back to the presentation right here. So next thing is utilizing descriptive hyperlinks. The important thing about using a descriptive hyperlinks is to tell our audiences where they're going. Using non-descriptive words like here or link doesn't really tell our audience where they're going. And good example of this is rather than saying click this link for more information, you can say visit SUNY Oswego Accessibility website for more information. An example of this specifically in social media is the story on Instagram allows you to post direct links. This is something very commonly used when we want our students to sign up for a housing application. They want to visit the college store to buy our merch, or they want to register to attend our admissions events. This is used very oftenly. However, sometimes what people like to do is they paste in the direct link. To the screen reader, it starts to read this out as letter by letter. So it would start to read this out as www1.os. We don't want somebody to have to go through that. And also they wouldn't really know where they're going. Another example of this is saying just the link. This doesn't inform our audience where they're going and what the purpose is of the website and the link that's included here. Best practice for this specific case would be saying visit our store, right? We're specifying, or we can say SUNY Oswego College Store. So specifying and being descriptive in your link so that your audience knows what it is that they're clicking on, and they can understand if this is something that the place that where they want to go to or not. Another thing to focus on when utilizing social media is I have this word in my presentation, but my accent just prevents me from pronouncing this right. So bear with me. Jargon. Okay. I can pronounce it better than this, but avoid using jargon and all caps. All of the directions and marketing materials that are presented, especially used in social media, should use an 8th grader reading level. An example of this would be if you are writing in all caps in your captions or in your graphics to the screen reader, this reads as letters instead of words. So again, an example that you see on the bottom, all caps would start to read as A, L, L, space, C. It doesn't recognize it as words. Again, it focuses on specifically letters. So when we are utilizing hashtags, it's important to use clear language. We try to use camel case for hashtags. This again helps the screen reader recognize this as a separate word. Because if we say this is camel case and we only use lowercase letters, it doesn't recognize it as a word and it starts to read it out as letters again. What camel's case means is that we are capitalizing every first letter. I mean, the first letter of every single word in our hashtag. That's why it has the camel, that's why it's called the camel case, because of the humps that you see here. So it's a visual, it's a term, I think it started off and it's used in programming, but it's a term used to describe capitalizing the first letter of every word. And it's a best practice to use for our hashtags. Not only does it help somebody who's using a screen reader, it actually helps somebody who is fully visually able to see what the words you are utilizing in your hashtags are. Another thing to watch out for hashtags is to always make sure to limit the amount of hashtags you're using. Ideally, the Instagram algorithm these days has changed to where nobody really needs to use more than 3 to 5 hashtags, as that's not how Instagram filters through information anymore. However, if you do decide to use them, sticking to 3 to 5 would be best practice, and the hashtags should always go after the primary content. So if you are inviting somebody for an event, you should include the information of the event, the title of the event, location, date, but then include the hashtags at the end. So these are some of the examples of how we would use camel case to capitalize the letters of our hashtags. And going into the next thing, which is emojis, limiting emojis as well. This is oftentimes a big whole, when it comes to social media, a lot of times things are communicated solely through the use of emojis. But if you are using emojis, sticking to only one and putting it at the very end of the post is considered best practice. The reason for this is that a lot of these emojis have obviously coded information and their own names, which to the screen reader then get read out. An example of this would be if we put don't clapping hands, it starts to read as don't clapping hands, use clapping hands, two clapping hands, right? Very obnoxious to listen to, and it doesn't really communicate what we're trying to say. Same goes for overusing the emojis. Rather than putting 3 party poppers, just if you're gonna use it, utilize one, right? There's no need to utilize multiple of these. An example of how we can make our captions better is utilizing the camel case and minimizing our emojis, making sure that our hashtags and emojis are at the end of our important content, and then making sure that we're including crucial information in the captions that we are posting. That's it for the social media. Again, I am trying very fast to squeeze all of this in. Looking at email, we're going to be discussing a couple of different emails, starting from how to build email from starting with the subject line and then going into some more hands-on examples of what it is that you can do. A lot of things that we discussed about social media overlap with the content we'll be talking about in email as well. So the important thing about writing emails is to have a clear subject line, treating the subject line as the title of our email. And we want to make sure that our emails are meaningful and concise. Again, we want to exclude utilizing all caps because, as we talked about it in social media, it reads it out as letters versus full words. And we do not want to use excessive punctuation. Another thing to focus on is utilizing clear and simple language, plain, easy to understand wording, keeping our emails brief and understanding that it's important to structure them. More important information should go first. There should be one main idea per every paragraph, and short sentences and chunks of text are best when writing emails that we want to make sure that our audiences are read and can easily comprehend. Using formatting tools such as headings, paragraphs, and lists. Now, Gmail itself does not have all of these abilities. However, it has lists. So if you are writing out a list, you should be making sure that you're utilizing those options in Gmail. We'll go over that in a moment. But and again, as we talked about it in a minute ago, breaking up long content into sections and making sure that each of those sections has its own message. Example of styling emails. So we have on the left side, we have a good example of how your email could look and a bad example. So in the bad example on the right, we're utilizing our subject, we're saying reminder, we're utilizing a lot of punctuation, we're utilizing all caps. Our message, our email doesn't really tell anything that's going on. An example of on the left talks about in the subject, it really tells us this is a meeting reminder. This is what the meeting is going to be about. And this is the date and time of this meeting. It goes into shortly and quickly explaining what it is that we're going to be covering, bolding the most important information you will need for the session, shortly utilizing the list to cover what's going to happen in that meeting, and in a short and concise way, instructing you and telling you what's going to be happening in the meeting. Choosing accessible fonts. So whenever you're writing emails, the 12 point is the minimum size you should be going for. Going higher than that is perfectly okay. If you are writing an email in Google Docs, you have more control over the sizing. Recommended fonts are Open Sans. So fonts that are sans serif fonts, the fonts that, these are some of the examples of fonts that would be easier to read. Roboto is also part of our school's branding font. So it's a great example to use to make sure that these fonts are easy to read. I would suggest avoiding decorative and script fonts because they can be much harder to read versus fonts like Open Sans or Georgia. Explaining attachments. So if you have an attachment in your email, let's say you're sharing a spreadsheet or you're sharing a Google Doc, you shouldn't be summarizing your content, your attachment, just by saying see attachment. Summarize key content in the email body so that somebody who's using a screen reader or using assistive technologies can easily understand what they can find in this Google Doc, and they can go take a look at it, scan it easily before they decide if they need to take a look of it or not. So for longer documents, again, just provide a brief description. What that would look like is if we're writing an email, I might be confusing you right now because I'm switching whether my bad example is on the left or right, but it depended on the day how I felt what's the right choice to do. So on the left side, we have the bad example of saying, hi team, please see attachment. Versus, hi team, attach are the notes from our September 10th Lakerfest Planning Committee meeting. This tells you right away what these meetings are from, when this date, all the relevant information related to these meetings, to these notes. The document includes finalist event schedule, volunteering sign-up details, and budgeting updates. And for reference, the file is a page 2 Word document, right? It doesn't take much longer to write it, but it provides information that is useful and can be necessary to understand what you're coming into and what you're going to be opening up. Providing alternative text. So we talked about alternative text for social media. Adding alternative text for all non-text content is important, whether it's being sent, whether it's being used on a website, or we're using it on social media, or we're sending it in an email. So Gmail actually allows you to use alternative text if you are to just drag and drop, let's say, a photo into your email. If you hover over that photo or right click on it, it's gonna provide you the option to select alternative text. And oh, quickly. Okay. So that's one way to do it. Again, if we're gonna, I'll show you a way to do it utilizing Google Docs, which might be even an easier way to do it. Being mindful of using color. I'm not going to show the same example, but as you can tell, the text on the bottom, it's not accessible. We need to focus on not utilizing color alone to convey meaning. The color is supposed to be used to enhance understanding, but not be the only way we're communicating information. And we need to make sure that the color contrast is high enough. I've shown you that previously how you can do it, but these same rules apply to social media just as they do for Gmail. Using bold and italics for emphasis instead of color alone. So let's say you want to communicate, I used this example earlier, but let's say you want to communicate important dates. Rather than saying important dates are shown in red, you can say that the important dates are shown bold. And this is a way that you can utilize bold or italic to emphasize something that you want to emphasize in your email without using solely color. Writing descriptive hyperlinks, again, not utilizing words like here or link. The way to do this in email. I'll show. Okay, so first I'll show you examples of bad hyperlinks, so to say, and better hyperlinks. So for event details, rather than saying click here, we can say Lakerfest 2025 schedule. To register, visit and then there's no need to paste in the whole link, which goes HTTP, right? We can say register for Lakerfest online. For more information is available here. We can say visit the student activities website, right? So all of the examples on the top are not descriptive, and all of the examples on the bottom provide us with descriptive text that tells our audience what they will be going to once they click on it. An example of how you can do this is if you scroll in your email and you go to the bottom, you will see this icon that represents the link. It's usually the third icon from the left, if we're excluding the send button. When you click on this, you're gonna have, so you would be, if you wanna, sorry. Let me take it a step back. So if you want to add a hyperlink to your email, and you decide what words you want to use. So let's say in this email, we're using accessibility website. We would highlight this text, then we would click on the icon, and then we would paste the URL at the bottom here where it says web address. And then we would click OK. This would allow us to make a link, add a link, and it would be a descriptive link if we use the right words. A bad example of an email, if we are promoting an event, would be this one. We're using all caps. We're using color that doesn't pass color contrast, right? The Lakerfest, the yellow that's used on the screen, does not pass the color contrast. We are utilizing multiple different emojis. We are mentioning a flyer, but we're not really saying what's going on in the flyer. We're including a link, but we're utilizing the full link, the whole HTTPS link. Our subject line is not descriptive. It's not considering a title of this event, right? There's, again, multiple emojis. An example of how this email could be written much better is, and following all the accessibility rules, is we're treating the subject line as a title. We're saying, joining us for Lakerfest. We're mentioning the most important things. Friday, August 29th from 5 to 8 p.m. And we're using bold here. We're using bold letters, bold text to emphasize the things that we want to. We're talking about the highlights that are included in the poster. We're talking about what it is, what are the highlights of this event. We're utilizing the bullets here. So we're using our list option here. It's an unordered list. And we are utilizing a descriptive hyperlink, saying where this will take them. And again, we're addressing ourselves. We're saying who we are and our department that we're sending this email from. So a way that you can send Google Docs, the way you can send emails through Google Docs. Actually, one thing I wanted to show first is, am I allowed to show my email? I wasn't sure if I will be allowed to show my email. I forgot to ask this earlier.
Sorry, yeah, you can do that.
Okay, so I will show you my email.
As long as
quickly.
you're not showing anything personal inside the email that somebody else wouldn't want you sharing.
Okay, I think I'll be safe if I'm in my drafts. So an example of how again, this is how we would be adding the links. So we can say it's a SUNY Oswego store. And I would be highlighting my text, clicking down here, and I could paste my link in here right away to apply this to be an accessibly easily visited link. Now, to go on to how we can send our Google Doc emails. So if you decide to send Google Doc emails, emails through Google Docs, it's actually a really easy way to do this. And it's actually quite fun to do it. So I will be showing you from the beginning how you can do that. If you were to open up, oh, sorry, it's hovering here. If you were to, please get away, please. Okay, if you were to open up Google Docs and start even just a blank document, you can go ahead. If you can go here and you see this email draft, you can click on email draft here, and you can easily write, obviously, the people that you want to send this email to. If you need to CC anyone, if you need to BCC anyone. So I will be writing my subject lines here saying Lakerfest. Event is, let's say, Saturday. I can't spell today. Saturday, 8 p.m. Saturday, October 26th. And we can say 5 till 8 p.m. And then I can go ahead and write what my email message is. Again, the beauty of Google Docs in this scenario is that it allows us to fully customize our email here. I can start by writing important information. Let's say hello everyone, and I really can't spell. And I can start saying important information, and I really can't spell today. Okay, I will stop saying that. I could go ahead. This is where you can utilize headings. So this is where you can spread and divide your content even better. So the screen reader can easily tell and allow somebody using a screen reader to scan through your content and to decide where they want to go and what they want to read. So I could use my headings here. I can decide how big my text is going to be, body of email. I can decide how big my text is going to be. Again, I have the ability still to change the colors, make my content bold, and I can easily include photos that I can add alternative text to. So if I were to paste in this photo into my email, into my Google Doc here, I can go ahead and right click on this and you will see the option alt text. There's also a keyboard shortcut depending on what you're using. Right now I'm using a Mac, so for me it's Command Option Epsilon, that's Serbian, Y. And if I were to click on this, on the right-hand side, I will be able to add alt text to my images. So this is a quick and easy way to add alt text to your images and send out emails utilizing Google Docs. You have all the abilities, right? If I'm writing an ingredients list, if I'm writing a list, so I can say list item 1, list item 2, list item 3. I can make this bulleted list, or I can make it a numbered list, whichever one it is. In case that when you hover over and you don't see the email draft option, you can easily access it by going to File and going to Email and saying Email Draft. So it would again open up the same thing for me. So this is a quick and easy way you can send out an email I think, is that, where's my, it's not, I apologize, I'm not just seeing one thing. Oh, okay. So if I want to send it, once I'm done writing my email and I make sure all of my content is correct, not that I've done that in this email, I'm just trying to quickly show you a demo of how you can do this. When you hover over the button right here, you can open it in a Gmail. It shows you how it would look. You can make sure everything looks good and you can go ahead and click send. Or you can schedule it to send. So you have all the options you would have in a regular Gmail, except you have even more ability to make your emails accessible. Sean, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's good.
Okay.
But how about everybody else? Anybody ever use that? It's a nice little feature, actually, sometimes if you want to go and if you're working on something kind of longer, have it go back and think your thoughts. And
yeah, I think it's a great example for, especially as you mentioned, the longer emails. I know when I communicate with my interns and I have multiple different assignments for them and different people, and I know I need to have longer or more paragraphs, I've gotten into the habit in the last couple of weeks to write them here because it allows me to break up the information and structure it in a more accessible and visually better way. So, one thing I also wanted to show is if you do decide to write an email and add a photo, the way you can add photos and add alternative text to email directly is if you were to drag and drop a file into email. Can you all see my email in this photo I've dropped in there?
Yep.
If I go in here and I click on the photo, if you see the fourth option here says edit alt text. So it allows me to edit the alt text of this photo added to the email. So there is a way to do it, but I still think utilizing Google Docs, it's easier and allows you more wiggle room. Okay, now to wrap up all of this, we've gone over the demo. Some of the resources that we've talked about, we have for social media, there's the Accessible Social. It's actually really nicely designed website that talks about creating content, writing documents, filming content, editing the content so it fits all the accessibility requirements. It talks about all the different platforms. Right now, I've shown you only Instagram because this is the main platform, social media platform used by a lot of our departments. However, we know there's Facebook, we know there's TikTok, we know there's X, we know there's LinkedIn, there's multiple different platforms, but focusing, and they have different abilities within themselves. However, understanding color contrast, understanding the focus of using clear language, understanding the focus of not using too many hashtags or not using all uppercase stands to be true on all of these social media platforms. And then we have the Brightspace course, a quest towards inclusion. We have the DQ University. All of these are things that can be found on the accessibility website, that you can find all of these tutorials, in-depth video tutorials or written tutorials for Gmail, for PowerPoint, for all of these different things. And obviously the accessibility workshops that we're doing today. And for the rest of the semester, I believe. So that's gonna be it for this section. Oops, I was not planning to open up. Are there any questions?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay.
Is anyone doing any of those things? Are many people creating content with closed captions?
Yay, Maddie. I'm not surprised that you would like something like that. It is great. It really is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and realistically, what I like to tell, I presented this obviously in a little bit of a different format to our student organizations, and what I like to say to them is making videos with captions takes only a minute longer than making without them, and you're reaching a much wider audience, and it's also easier even if you have full hearing ability. It's easier because imagine the amount of times you were on a busy bus or in a busy coffee shop or right before a meeting and you're scrolling through social media and you're watching a video and the captions in that video are actually helping you understand what's going on because you do not have the ability to listen at full volume or with volume at all, right? So it's helping even if you do have full cognitive abilities, it's still helping you consume this better content better, and it helps broaden out the reach. We can reach larger audiences and all of our students.
Yeah, and then Ryan commented he's been doing a lot of Instagram Canvas posts for an internship. So learning less text and more pictures was a helpful tip.
Oh yeah, it is a big one. I know um, a lot of departments have brought this up, and it's something that I think it's going to be an interesting learning curve for us to understand that if we are making posters, they should be printed out, but not utilizing social media, as there's no really an accessible way to present posters on social media, not even sharing them on our stories. So it's, oh, great. I love to hear that, Doran. Yes, utilizing closed captions for the videos makes them much better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, Carrie, yes, I agree. Reading helps much better. And I can say somebody who's, well, English is my second language. Having the transcript below helps me a lot, especially if the person even has a different accent than my own, which is funny because you would think that because we both have an accent, we'd understand each other better. I think it really depends what part of the world the accent comes from, because some I click with, some I clash with. Like I really cannot understand them. So without having that transcript, sometimes I completely lose out on the purpose of the lesson or the training video just because there's no transcript. Okay, well, Carrie, Sean, what do you guys think? Or should we be wrapping up if there's no more questions or?
Yeah, I think if you've covered everything, that's good. I don't know if Carrie has anything to add from this, but you've covered a lot of really good material, I think, that people can use, not just in social media, but really anytime they're, sending email and, thinking about how you want to communicate with people.
We didn't cover, we didn't talk about it, or if we did, didn't call out Canva, but that's one of them that uses the images that might not, you can design it accessible inside Canva, but once it's created as a picture and shared out, it may lose its accessibility features. And so that was one of the conversations we've had, that trying to work through that, because we know it's a popular tool, but like to figure out how to use it in a way that is more accessible is something to be thinking about.
Yeah, we're gonna be coming up obviously with more detailed instructions and I would say advice on how to use it. But because as you said, right now, even though Canva tells you there's the option for alternative text, there's the option to mark headings, there's all of these options, as Carrie mentioned, the second you export it as a PDF or a photo or anything like that, it loses all of these accessibility features, which will require you to go fix that in Adobe Acrobat, but that can be extremely time consuming. So hopefully either Canva changes some of its practices or we will have to really look into alternative ways of promoting and advertising our events. So again, Canva, anything that's made in Canva is not going to be accessible on Instagram or any social media ever. I mean, right now, as the software stands right now. But we'll see how it will go going forward.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
not too familiar with it in my role, but I've heard conversations about it, and it's worth, at least acknowledging that, so that if it is part of somebody's process, that do some, figure out what's the best way to go about using it in an accessible way.
yeah, yeah. I will say that Rebecca and Melissa and Rose Troop, we've been meeting to figure out best practices and see alternative ways of dealing with this. And I think once we do have more advice on this, we can certainly send out an email again to help with the messaging, but I would say be careful when you are creating content in Canva because it is not accessible.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I will stop the recording.
Thank you.